Today we will learn how plants grow and reproduce. Say reproduce with me 3 times. Reproduce, reproduce, reproduce. To reproduce means to make babies or new plants. Plants reproduce by making seeds that can grow into new plants. Sunflower seeds grow into sunflowers. Oak tree seeds grow into oak trees. In order for plants to reproduce, they must go through something called pollination. Say that word with me 3 times. Pollination, pollination, pollination. Pollination happens when the pollen or yellow powder from one plant is carried to another plant so that the plant can make seeds. Some insects, mammals, and birds are called pollinators. Say that word with me 3 times. Pollinator, pollinator, pollinator. A pollinator is something that carries pollen from plant to plant. We have some insect pollinators, some bees and some butterflies pictured on this slide. And we have some bird and down here a mammal who helps to pollinate flowers so that the flowers can make seeds. These insects, birds, and mammals that help spread pollen are called pollinators. Our read aloud today is called the life cycle of a plant. All living things go through stages from birth to adult called a life cycle. For many living things, the cycle of life follows the 4 seasons of the year. For some living things, the cycle of life is short and completed in just a few days, months, or a single year. For other living things, the cycle of life continues for many, many years. Today we will learn about the life cycle of a flowering plant. Just think about all the flowering plants you see in parks, yards, gardens, fields, or meadows. Our world is awash or full of color with vibrant flowering plants. How do these plants grow and reproduce or make new seeds? Let's find out. A flowering plant begins its life cycle as a seed. A seed needs special conditions to germinate or grow. Spring provides seeds with the right conditions to grow. Therefore, the life cycle of a flowering plant begins in the spring. In spring, there is more sunlight and the temperatures are warmer. Seeds need just the right amount of light from the sun, nutrients from the soil, and water in order to grow. Once the seed germinates or sprouts, it grows and develops into a young plant with roots, a stem, and leaves. The first leaves unfold to allow photosynthesis to begin. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants make their own food as well as oxygen for us. Plants use sunlight and water to make food in the form of a glucose or a type of sugar. In the warmth of spring and summer, plants continue to grow. A young plant is called a seedling. Gradually the plant stem will grow taller and true leaves will emerge. Once a plant matures or becomes an adult plant, flowers appear. In order for a flowering plant to reproduce or make seeds that will make new flowering plants, it must be pollinated. Pollination is when one flower mixes with the pollen of another flower so that the plant can make a seed. But how is the pollen transferred or moved from one plant to another? In other words, how does pollination occur? Flowering plants need pollinators to help them with pollination. Flowering plants pollinators are insects, birds, and other animals that are attracted to the color, shape, or scent of a flower. Without pollinators, most flowering plants would not produce a seed and fruit. There are many types of pollinators, such as birds and small mammals, but insects are the #1 pollinator of flowering plants. The flowers of a flowering plant are designed to attract different types of pollinators, but especially insects. Their shape, fragrance, and color, as well as the sweet-tasting nectar that's contained within the flower itself, attracts many different kinds of insects. As insects move from flower to flower, a sticky powder-like substance called pollen clings to their body, and it's transferred not only within a flower, but also from flower to flower. Honeybees are the most common pollinators. They carry out more pollination than any other insect. Some scientists think that bees are attracted to bright blue and violet colored flowers best, whereas butterflies like fragrant yellow, pink, red, or orange flowers. Butterflies also like wide petals so they can settle in on them and drink the flower's sweet nectar. Birds are important pollinators too, especially of wildflowers. For example, hummingbirds have perfectly designed beaks that can reach inside the long tubular shape of some flowers. There are more than 2,000 different kinds of birds in the world that feed on nectar. Birds have a bad sense of smell and help to pollinate unscented flowers because they are more attracted by the color and the shape of the flower. There are some small mammals that help to pollinate flowers also. Mice, shrews, rats, even tree-dwelling animals such as lemurs and small monkeys can help to transfer pollen. People also help in the pollination process. Often, when people are working in their flower garden, that sticky pollen is accidentally carried from flower to flower by humans. For some plants, pollination does not occur during the daytime. Some scented flowers attract nighttime pollinators, such as bats and moths. Although most of the flowering plants are pollinated by animals, especially insects, wind and water can also play a part too. Pollen can be carried by the wind. Flowering plants that live in the water, such as lilies, can be pollinated when the water carries the pollen from one plant to another. Once the pollen has been transferred and it reaches a new plant, the flower can begin to produce seeds. The next part of this process is called seed dispersal. This is the process of carrying the seeds away from the parent plant so that the flowering plant life cycle can begin all over again. Just like with pollination, there are many different ways that seeds can be dispersed or spread apart in different directions. Many flowering plants' seeds are carried away from the parent plant by wind. As the wind blows, the seeds are carried up into the air. Some flowering plants have pods or capsules that seem to explode, sending forth a burst of tiny seeds into the air. Other flowering plants drop their seeds into rivers and streams, and these seeds are carried by water to their new homes. Some seeds are contained in a fruit that animals like to eat. Animals either spit out the seeds or eat them, and the seeds reach the earth in animal droppings that are left behind. Once on the ground, they rest in the soil until the germination process can begin again the following spring. All of this is happening all around us in the spring, summer, and early autumn. The potential for new life is being created as flowering plants are pollinated and the seeds are dispersed. Across the world, the life cycle of flowering plants is renewed or happens again each year. And let's see, we have plants starting out as seeds. They rest in the soil till they become warm and receive some rain and sunlight. They begin to sprout. The plant grows into a flower. Once that flower is pollinated, it can produce seeds. The seeds are dispersed, and the process starts all over again. And the cycle keeps going around and around and around.